WikiLeaks.org, a whistleblower website, has published what it says are nearly 92,000 official U.S. documents of raw data on the deaths and casualties collected over the past 6 years. Julian Assange, the founder of the website, calls it, quote, the total history of the Afghan war from 2001 until now, 2010. Assange claims the documents reveal first-hand accounts of relatively small incidents that have added up to huge numbers of dead civilians. CNN has not confirmed the authenticity of the claim or the documents, which supposedly come from both U.S. military and diplomatic sources. But it's already provoked an angry response from the Obama administration. And National Security Advisor General James Jones says publishing the documents was, quote, irresponsible and could put lives at risk and threaten national security. The documents were released tonight on the internet, but the New York Times has had access to them for weeks. Their own reporting strongly suggests what many in the U.S. military have long suspected. The Taliban are getting intelligence and assistance from Pakistan. New York Times reporter Chris Chivers joins me now by telephone. So, Chris, what have you found as you have been poring over these thousands of documents?
I think what you find is the documents are so extensive that you can go hacking your way through them in almost any number of different directions. As you said, they tell us a lot about civilian casualties, and they suggest that many of the incidents of civilian casualties that have gathered the most attention actually have not accumulated nearly the number of casualties as the much more routine and small events that occur on patrols and checkpoints around the country, day in and day out, week in and week out. They tell us something about the connections between the Afghan insurgency and operations in Pakistan of the leadership of various insurgent groups. They tell us something about how difficult the war is and how the Taliban fights on the ground. They tell us a lot about individual commanders. But you can basically, there are so many records that you can go off in almost any direction and try to explore almost any theme about the war.
Yeah, as we said, there are many of them. So listen, here's the question. How much of this stuff is true? This is just raw data and not necessarily a documentation of hard fact.
What you have here is you have a variety of reports of different types. Many of them are simple incidents reports. They're the military describing, in their view, from the guys on the ground, what happened, incident by incident, a shooting at a checkpoint, a patrol to go meet a group of elders, the distribution of humanitarian aid in a village. Those reports, the military will tell you is true. They did not dispute the authenticity of those reports. That's their own account of things they were involved in or did. Now, there are other reports that are what you would call an intelligence summary. It's a distillation of something that a source may have brought to someone in the military or to someone in one of the intelligence services. And that information, like any source-based information, is only as good as the person who brought it forward. And that person may have had a motive. That person may simply have been wrong. You don't necessarily know. But in aggregate, when you take the pictures together, they serve, or all the documents together, they serve as something of a mosaic. So you shouldn't rest much on any one document. It's the body together, as you search through the records, that begins to give you sort of a pixelated picture of the theme that you're interested in looking at.
All right, Chris Chivers from the New York Times, thank you very much for your reporting. And for more now about the organization that released these documents, we want to go to CNN's Atika Schubert. She is in London. Atika, what can you tell us about WikiLeaks and its founder?
Well, WikiLeaks is founded by Julian Assange. He's a former hacker, and basically he's used his skills at encryption to try and basically make the WikiLeaks website, which allows for secure, anonymous whistleblowers to put their documents in and make them secure and anonymous. Now, that means that WikiLeaks verifies this information with their own sources, with their own journalists. We have not been able to independently verify the authenticity of these documents, and it's going to take some time. There's more than 90,000 of these reports. But WikiLeaks so far has a very good track record, and they say that they have never put out anything that's been a forgery or a hoax, that the track record so far is 100%. Now, Julian Assange himself is quite a bit of a character in the sense that he's a former hacker. He's very elusive. He travels around the world. He has no, set permanent home. And he's also believed to have been wanted by FBI officials who've been wanting him for a questioning, or at least that's what he believes, and that's why he's now refusing to travel to the United States. He says his motivation for putting out this information is that he simply wants more transparency. He wants abuses that are being conducted in this war to be corrected. Here's what he told us in an interview about the documents that have been put out today.
Is the sort of the total squalor of the war. So all these people killed in the small events that we haven't heard about, which numerically eclipse the big events, the big civilian casualty events. It's the boy killed by a shell that missed a target. It's villagers that have gone to hospital as a result of a missed airstrike.
Now, you heard from the New York Times reporter earlier that really there's so much information here that WikiLeaks itself can't go through all this. 3 other newspapers have had difficulty. They've just scratched the surface of what's in these records. So what WikiLeaks says is that it's making it open to the public so that everybody, not just journalists, but soldiers, witnesses, anybody involved in these events can look up the information, verify them, and tell the world what's really happening in Afghanistan.
And Atika, thank you very much. And as journalists and the administration and others pour over these documents, we're going to learn much, much more about them. Again, our thanks to Atika Schubert.